I stood on the observation deck of the Zilithar, my segmented claws tapping against the smooth, translucent railing. Below me, the planet shimmered, a swirling orb of blue and green dotted with patches of grey that my superiors insisted were cities. Primitive, they called it. A backwater rock, barely worth the fuel it took to get here. My mandibles twitched in mild annoyance as I recalled Commander Vix's briefing earlier that cycle. The humans are a curiosity, Cry. Nothing more. Scan their toys if you must, but don't waste too much time. They're barely spacefaring. The Zilithar was a marvel of Clitheran engineering, sleek, obsidian, and bristling with sensors that could map a star system down to the last grain of dust. We'd charted countless worlds, catalogued species too numerous to name, and dismissed most of them as insignificant. I'd been a scanner tech for 3 solar turns now, my role simple: point the arrays, collect the data, and let the analysts decide what mattered. My 6 eyes flicked across the control panel, each screen glowing with readouts I could interpret faster than most of my crewmates. I was good at my job, maybe too good. That's why Vix had stuck me with this assignment, babysitting a species that hadn't even cracked faster than light travel. "Anything yet, Cry?" came a voice from behind me. I didn't need to turn to know it was Tizin, my assistant. Her tone carried that faint edge of boredom she always tried to hide. She shuffled closer, her 4 legs clicking softly against the deck, and peered over my shoulder. "Looks like a mudball to me." "Patience," I muttered, adjusting the sensor focus. "They've got ships, small ones. I'm picking up signatures in orbit, crude, but active. Let's see what they're made of." The scanner hummed as it locked onto the nearest human vessel, a blocky, angular thing orbiting their planet's equator. It was all sharp edges and dull grey plating, nothing like the elegant curves of Clitheran design. I tapped a claw against the console, and the screen filled with data: mass, velocity, energy output. Basic stuff. The ship was tiny, barely a speck compared to the Zilithar. I smirked, my mandibles clicking. "Look at that. They've strapped engines to a box and called it a warship." Tizin chittered, a Clitheran laugh. "Warship? That's generous. It's a cargo hauler with delusions." I leaned closer, narrowing my primary eyes. The readings were odd. The energy signature was low, barely enough to keep it aloft, and the hull was a patchwork of alloys, nothing exotic, just common metals hammered together. But something nagged at me. The layout didn't make sense. Too many irregularities, too many gaps where critical systems should be. "Hang on," I said, tweaking the scanner's depth. "Let's peel it back, see what's inside." The array pulsed, sending a wave of high-frequency particles toward the human ship. Standard procedure. We'd done it 1,000 times on 1,000 worlds. Most species didn't even notice. The screen flickered as the data streamed in, and then, a sharp whine cut through the air. Red lights flared across my console, and the Zilithar shuddered, not violently, but enough to make Tizin stumble. "What in the void was that?" she snapped, gripping the railing. I didn't answer. My claws flew over the controls, trying to make sense of the chaos. The scanner was offline, not just offline, fried. Circuits that had run flawlessly for cycles were now spitting error codes I'd never seen. "That's impossible," I hissed. "The array's rated for stellar flares. A primitive ship shouldn't." "Cry." Tizin pointed at the viewport. The human ship hadn't moved, but its silhouette had shifted, subtle, almost imperceptible. A faint glow pulsed along its edges, like embers waking up in a dying fire. "Did it notice us?" "Don't be ridiculous," I said, though my voice lacked conviction. I reset the secondary array, rerouting power from the backups. "It's a glitch. Their tech's too crude to detect a scan, let alone counter it." "I'll try again." The second pulse went out, softer this time, less invasive. The screen steadied, and for a moment, I thought I'd won. Then the whine returned, louder, sharper, and the Zilithar lurched again. This time, the lights dimmed, and a low groan echoed through the hull. Tizen's eyes, all 8 of them, widened. Cry, stop it. You're going to break something. I'm not doing anything, I snapped, slamming a claw against the override. The scanner cut off, but the damage was done. Half my screens were dark, and the rest showed gibberish, random strings of numbers and symbols that mocked my training. I stared at the human ship, still floating silently in the void. It hadn't fired a weapon, hadn't moved an inch, and yet, it had slapped us across the face without breaking a sweat. Commander Vix's voice crackled over the comms. Cry, report. Why are we losing power? I swallowed, my throat dry. Sir, the human ship, it reacted. The scanner's down. I don't know how, but it hit us back. Then Vix's growl filled the line. Reacted. It's a primitive heap. Fix your equipment and stop wasting my time. The comms cut off. Tizen stared at me, her mandibles quivering. You think he's right? Just a malfunction. I didn't answer. My gut said no, but my training screamed yes. I turned back to the viewport, watching that ugly little ship drift along its orbit. It looked harmless, almost mocking. Let's get a probe out there, I said finally. Something passive, no scans, just visuals. The probe launched an hour later, a small, unassuming orb designed to blend into the background. It floated toward the human ship, transmitting a steady feed of images back to us. Up close the vessel was even uglier, scarred and patched, with strange protrusions jutting out at odd angles. It didn't look like a warship. It looked like junk. But as the probe circled, I noticed something. The glow we'd seen earlier was gone. The ship was dark again, dormant, waiting. See, Tizen said, relaxing a little. Nothing special. Probably just a power surge on our end. Maybe, I muttered. But I kept watching. The probe completed its loop and drifted closer, brushing the edge of the human ship's sensor range. That's when it happened. A hatch on the vessel's side slid open. No warning, no build-up, and a thin beam of light lanced out. The probe's feed cut to static. Tizen froze. Did it just? Yeah, I said, my voice tight. It did. The comms buzzed again. Vix, cry. Why'd we lose the probe? They shot it down, sir, I said, forcing the words out. One hit. No hesitation. Another pause. Longer this time. Get me a full report. Now. Meanwhile, the briefing room smelled of ozone and tension. Vix loomed at the head of the table, his armored plates gleaming under the lights. Around him sat the Silithert senior staff, engineers, tacticians, analysts, all waiting for me to explain why a primitive heap had turned our routine mission into a mess. I stood at the front, my claws clasped behind me, trying to ignore the itch of sweat under my carapace. Initial scans triggered an unknown response. I began, keeping my tone steady. The human ship disrupted our arrays without firing a weapon. Subsequent probe deployment confirmed active defenses, precise, minimal, and instantaneous. We lost contact within seconds. Vix's eyes narrowed, all 4 of them glinting like polished steel. You're telling me a species that can't even leave their system crippled our tech? I'm saying their ship reacted I corrected, meeting his gaze. It didn't attack. It countered. There's a difference. The room stirred. Liz, our chief engineer, leaned forward, her mandibles clicking thoughtfully. What about their systems? Did you get anything before the arrays went dark? Fragments, I admitted, pulling up the data on the holo display. A blurry schematic flickered to life, half-formed, full of gaps. Basic propulsion, low energy output, nothing remarkable. But the hull, it's layered, dense. I'd guess it's shielding something, but we couldn't penetrate it. Shielding, Vix snorted. With what? Dirt and hope. A few officers chittered, but Liz didn't laugh. She tapped the table, zooming in on the schematic. Look at these seams. They're irregular, deliberately so. That's not sloppy construction. That's camouflage. Camouflage. Tizen piped up from the back, her voice skeptical. For what? They're not hiding from us. We see them plain as day. Maybe not hiding, Liz said, her eyes narrowing, deflecting, bouncing our scans back at us, or worse. The room went quiet. Vix shifted, his plates clanking. You're suggesting they've got countermeasures against asterisk. I'm suggesting we don't know what they've got, I said, stepping in. Every time we poke them, they poke back harder, and they're not even breaking a sweat. Vix stared at me, then at the hollow display. Finally, he waved a claw. Fine, pull back. Observe from a distance. I want options, not guesses. We retreated to high orbit, keeping the human ship in our sights, but well out of range. For days, I watched it through passive sensors, telescopes, thermal imaging, anything that wouldn't trigger another slap. It didn't move much, just drifted along its path, silent and unassuming, but I couldn't shake the feeling it was watching us too. Tizen wasn't convinced. You're paranoid, she said one shift, lounging by the console with a nutrient stick in her claw. It's a dumb machine. No crew, no brain, probably just automated defenses tripping over themselves. Then why'd it only hit the probe when it got close? I countered, zooming in on the latest footage. It ignored us until we crossed a line. That's not random, that's calculated. She shrugged, crunching the stick. Maybe it's territorial, like a nest guarder. Maybe, I said, but I didn't buy it. Nest guarders didn't fry advanced scanners or snipe probes with pinpoint accuracy. This was something else, something smarter. The fleet launched at dawn, a shimmering armada of Calitharan warships cutting through the void. I watched from the station, my eyes fixed on the holofeed as we approached the belt. The human fortress loomed larger now, its towers glinting in the starlight. Their ships, dozens of them, hovered in formation, waiting. Open a channel, I ordered. The comms crackled and Ortiz's face appeared, her expression calm but unyielding. You're in our space now, she said. Turn back. Your space. I snapped, my upper arms flaring. This is Council territory. You've stolen what's ours. We claimed it, she replied. You didn't want to share, so we took it. Fair's fair. Fair. I laughed, a sharp trill. You're outmatched. Surrender, or we'll reduce your little base to dust. Her lips twitched, a smile, maybe. Try it, she said, and the feed cut out. The battle was swift and brutal. Our fleet advanced, lances blazing, expecting to overwhelm them. But the humans moved like they'd anticipated every shot. Their ships darted between asteroids, using the rocks as shields, while their fortress unleashed a barrage of missiles, crude, yes, but relentless. Our shields flared, then faltered. One ship went down, then another, their hulls breached by weapons we hadn't even scanned. I gripped the console, my scales cold. Pull back, I shouted, but the order came too late. Half our fleet limped away, trailing debris, while the humans held their ground, unscathed. The council chamber was a tomb that night. Gorv slumped in his seat, his rumble silenced. The Nirith's thoughts pulsed with dread. I stood before them, my pride in tatters. We misjudged them, I said, the words bitter. They're not just scavengers, they're builders, fighters. What now? A Silaxian hissed. I didn't know, but the humans did. A new message arrived the next day. Not a demand, not a threat, but an invitation. Come talk, it said. We'll host. We went because we had no choice. Their fortress was even more imposing up close, its walls patched with scavenged metal, yet impossibly sturdy. Ortiz met us in a cavernous hall, flanked by Holt and a dozen others, men and women with hard eyes and steady hands. The air smelled of oil and sweat, a stark contrast to our sterile ships. You underestimated us, Ortiz said, her voice even. Everyone does, we're used to it. I studied her, my eyes tracing the lines of her face. No scales, no extra limbs, just soft flesh and a will like iron. How did you do this? I asked. Weeks ago you had nothing. We had each other, Holt said, stepping forward, and a reason to fight. You gave us that. They walked us through their base, showing us workshops where they'd forged weapons from scraps, reactors humming with jury-rigged power. Every corner buzzed with activity, humans welding, planning, laughing. They'd turned a barren rock into a stronghold, not with magic or superior tech, but with sheer stubbornness. We don't give up, Ortiz said, as we stood before a viewport, the asteroid belt sprawling beyond. You pushed us, so we pushed back harder. I felt a chill, not from the air, but from the realization sinking in. We'd seen them as weak because they lacked our tools, our history, but they had something else, something we'd lost in our cycles of peace. Adaptability, grit. The talks resumed, but this time, they set the terms. Equal shares of the Tilium, mutual defense pacts, trade. We agreed, because the alternative was worse. As we left, Ortiz caught my arm, not a gesture of threat, but of respect. You're not so bad, she said, just needed a wake-up call. Back on Calithera, the council reeled, whispers of the humans spread, tales of their fortress, their defiance. Some called them reckless, others brilliant. Me? I watched the stars, my mind replaying every moment. We'd thought ourselves above them, untouchable, but they'd humbled us, not with power, but with will. And somewhere, deep in my core, I wondered if they could do this in weeks, what might they become in years? The galaxy wasn't ready. Neither was I.